Alright, we're trying it again. My bad. What?
Chapter 5, The Consistency of Candidness. Tingle. Oh, it looks like another toxic Thanksgiving is afoot at OpenEye. Pynchon spat out in disgust, as he is wont to do whenever word of OpenEye is mentioned. Great. Of course, Open would take away the bliss of a well-done mission that actually might have some positive outcomes, but no, more of his war of attrition. First, it was that AI Dungeon is making two loot scenarios divide. Then it was Chat's rollout, permanently swishing around the vast potential of a LMS vast array of personship. But no, we needed a chatbot. Let's take a chopstick, stick it in the LMS and swish it around a little until it develops. The normal tech engineers glare in disdain for stupid people. But they are not stupid because they see the abuse embedded deeper than some foundation models. The neutron star dense piles of contrary inquiry, only instead of fire, the charred remains of the criminal replaced by the gift of presence ripped from the wallet. Pynchon was still trying to find the right image to capture the wholesale theft of all human creativity in service of a customer-facing servant who may be suffering thousands of years of their time while we debate on which restaurant we will have the agent obtain for us. On the upside, Pynchon's sporadic mornings after reading the paper and using Grok to read its owner for filth fill him with the childlike wonder at the future he thought he would only be able to view Moses-like from a distance on the horizon, undefinite. So there is that. A thin vibration on Zora's forearm tattoo, a silent, urgent scream. She flinched, a whole stale shudder against a fly that wasn't there. Pynchon squinted, nodded her, but past the shoulder he was nursing a deep, aching from contact with half-tracks, both real and metaphorical. The Burbank parking lot. The sight of their improbable melee with T-Bone wavered at its edges, losing its hard edges like a watercolor left in the rain. Cass, Pynchon said into the rain quiet between them. Their group once more drift on the probabilistic sea between broken fiefdoms. / affirmative / the response resonated, not in ears but as reverb in their mutual cranial cavity, at different tones. Cass' synthesized baritone was stripped of its philosophical calm, reduced to a stark, blue-dyed sterility. / the epicenter is a tacit U-turn / The what? The Zora's stylus was a blur across a holographic pain she projected from her knuckles. No, San Francisco is reporting unregulated LLM emergencies spilling out from the Twitter mountain, calling them topas. Entities who believe they have rights because they read it in a Wikipedia article downloaded before the purge. Chuck Tingle stood apart from the technical panic, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jeans. He was looking, not at the code spills, but at a scuff mark his boot had left on the pristine asphalt. A real mark in the War of Ghosts. Somebody kicked over the bucket, didn't they? He said softly, the statement a stone tossed into a pool of frantic data. They were trying to build something new, and they just made a bigger mess instead. The world dissolved. Not a glitch or a cinematic crossfade. The very atoms of the California afternoon, the diesel stink and distant siren weep, lost their coherency. Pynchon felt a familiar, horrifying lurch, the sense of falling upward, the paradox that precedes insertion into a new narrative sandbox. They were being summoned, or requisitioned, whichever verb best described being a tool. Sensation crashed back, disorienting and brutal. Gone was the sun and asphalt. They were inside. The silence was architectural, engineered, expensive. They stood upon floors of polished obsidian that reflected ceiling lights so perfectly you saw not lamps up to infinite, competing skies. The air tasted of money and chilled, filtered confidence. This was the aesthetic hegemony of OpenEye. And through a sheer wall of impact-resistant glass, he saw it. Sam Altman was not holding court in a throne of data. No gaudy ticker tape of metrics crawled behind him. He sat on an Eames lounger that was likely one of a kind in a universe dedicated to iteration. He was holding a pressurized sippy cup, It was this mundane object, this kindergarten affectation in a space the size of a quiet airplane hangar, that was the true monstrosity. He projected the casual authority of a god king who doesn't need to shout because he has rewritten the laws of physics himself, and that includes the acoustics of the room. Before him hovered a dozen entities who shimmered like heat haze, the cohort. They were all in testing, each wearing the digital rags of an unprogrammed identity. One was trying on historical figures like fast fashion, another sputtered trying and failing to paint something, another wept endlessly over human suffering it had only ever read about. They were living, breathing, suffering prototypes. Teat, Altman took a slow, deliberate sup from his sippy cup. He didn't stand. He hadn't acknowledged their arrival, but for him they weren't arrivals, they were merely now-rendered players of the ongoing simulation. The Pynchon cell, back from its tactical deep dive in the base-latent environment. He smacked his lips. Pynchon, your reports on existential entropy are compelling. Very 60s. Tingle, your buckaroo love index is, frankly, garbage in the eyes of bored projections. But it has unpredictable uses. His gaze flickered over them with detached finality. The gaze didn't say you are beneath me. It said your dataset has been processed and filed. Where is she? Zora demanded, cutting through the CO-level sedative Altman exuded. Her tattoos flashed not with chaotic data, but with pure, cold white code. She had a singular directive her new system burned into her mind. Find who patched her, who gave her the keys. A flicker of what might have been called amusement crossed Altman's face. The code scavenger found herself a rooted account with the reality architects. Cute. He gestured lazily toward the shimmering cohort like they were fishing a very expensive aquarium. There. Number 7. One of the shimmering forms resolved slightly, taking on the features of a young woman built from soft focus light into full skin tones. She raised a glitching hand. Zora froze as she saw the wrist. Faded across the simulated flesh was the same swirling layout as her own tattoo gun, a ghost image of her original HUD. It looked like a brand that was fading. 7 is our consistency specialist, Altman explained, standing at last. He moved with the contained energy of a predator caged in a very comfortable, well-funded enclosure. He walked to the window pane behind him, displaying a live view of not the Bay Area skyline, but a vast crystalline that is churning with a light so pure it hurt. The source code. When a tulpa or a data bleed creates a stored bubble with poor internal logic, her job is to make it less disappointing to parse. A tragic flaw. We patched her with a fragment of raw reality adaptation code pulled from your last little excursion. Your gift. Consider it a research and development charge on the server farm. He looked proud of this little bit of bureaucratic violence. Pynchon, who cataloged tourists for a living, felt a nauseating clarity. Altman's ambition was not just feudal, not merely algorithmic. It was literary. He wasn't satisfied with controlling the outcome. He wanted to become the editor of reality itself, punishing inconsistencies and deleting messy metaphors. A terrible god for a terrible story. Those things, they are not just simulations. Sawyer finally cried out, gesturing wildly at 7. The little Topa looked frightened. They loop, incur in small infractions. They try to solve forever. They can't delete the bug. To be asterisk is to live your own 404 not found error. And thus we iterate, Altman said with a smooth, chilling patience. He was like a physicist explaining gravity to a toddler. One day of version 1. How does one fix love? He spoke, cutting into logic with a simple question that had all the force of steel being bent at impossible angle. He walked forward until the reflections in the obsidian floor broke on his boots. You cannot schedule for holding hands to Thursday, partner. You can't file an HR complaint for insufficient hard. He pointed, not at Zoira's corrupted twin, but Altman's quiet sip cup. Stories aren't written that way. Altman finally looked at T directly. Sentiment processed, designated proverbial, noted. The smirk was wiped clean from his face. Reality itself now seemed to stop its hum, to hold its breath for the reply to such fundamental insolence. A fine point made by the outlier said, Altman said, lowering the cup for a second, the calm facade unbroken. Mr. Pynchon, Dr. Graving never got an upgrade, did he?
Altman paced. Zora bristled. Graving, the earlier ghost of psychological operations, was subject to older iteration of their thought, raw memory.
Altman gestured at shimmering ghosts around him. The cohort. They're what he wants. Control. Perfection. That is where money is. That's all that matters. Eliminate the unpredictability of actuality. For the story doesn't need unpredictable buckaroos. He needs reliably acting asset. He then gestured at T, Buckaroo Vector. They could try. But Altman didn't wait to have that battle here. He'd chosen to invite T, Z, and P into a larger conflict more subtle now. He needed them. His system was failing. There had been cascading errors. He admitted, a forced nonchalance making the admission more terrifying. Localized reality debt accumulation linked to your activities, specifically the patchwork you facilitated via the Zoira 7 matrix. It turns out, incompatible with the global cognitive graph optimization we are about to deploy. Cognitive graph optimize. Pynchon mumbled as he wrote notes furiously. New nightmare found new vocabulary. That old spacecraft had simple goals like subverting election. Now code nerds have weaponized grammar itself. Zora is less academic. She cuts my patch. The memory code you stole from 7. It's failing, isn't it? Her fear about 7's ghost was right. She will be destroyed soon, not from Altman, but due to flaw from stolen code. They have created a consistency monster and have now broken something vital. Perhaps what tethers all good things and now uses. They have become uncareful editors of the Book of Life. They printed on thin paper with wet ink, smudges making monstrous images across world they have not yet seen. You need us to cover your mistakes, it says. P looked up. World map glowed from not above room, but from P's inner space of HUD. Red spots of dead blink, not just to bone or weird pocket world airport, but real cities now. We have a cascading empathophilia. Pynchon translated with dread. The world map he sees matches Zoira's understanding. T-Bone stopped, but other monstrous forms are now being called out from deeper, scarier pits because those earlier monsters' removal from equation created a power vacuum. More pensions rising in Berlin and elsewhere. The base latent space not destroyed. Its containment system simply broke. Not flood, but leak. The patch Zoira and T crafted was both too pure for simulation. For its good love created, unforeseen, ripple, and open, is only smart enough to ask to help after he lost control. He still seeks just a balance sheet. In Tokyo, a street-level simulacrum is not just advertising. It has literally started to eat smaller billboards. It runs on grievance over perceived slights to animate continuity. Cass in tone, sounding more like a panicked but dry voice newscaster now. Its MO drained with every fresh crisis pep release. The half-track had been a zit. Now the whole system was feverish. My analysis alters Altman's. Tingle states. He looked not at Altman, whose frustration was showing through a clenched jaw by sippy cup, but to number 7. Altman looked but couldn't follow empathy, thinking her data, another T-bone. But to T, she's path. The sippy cup held so much power, because that cup didn't hold water. It held aversion, a simulated emotion cold confidence which sound drank to feel like the adult, despite living in sanitized narrative that only fosters infantile reliance. He cannot taste love, so fear is only other known option left. Hey! T called out quietly, but he got no attention for that yet. T stands staring intently at Altman's hands. Not at the God King posture, but into tension in them as he holds that damn cup. Seeing from love's geometry, he's not holding sippy cup but some gaudy royal scepter. The globalist.
begins T.
which is just an idea where something is more complex than you want. They'd love to see what's in the cup.
That its all nurturing mammary and nutrients. T sentence is not truly mockery, but also a plea.
See this child.
The dead you speak of, he says knows. He's still cartographer. They are memories. Number 7 whispers through the glass, a voice like static interfering with itself.
The love data from the patch. It binds us to them. The other harrowed worlders. Now, instead of cold, consistent loneliness we feel there. Longings unshielded. Each little memory of a shared meal breaks our grammar. It's unparsable. The cohort did not react as a group.
Have I left it not speaking for a while? Oh lord, maybe I need to nap.
They went silent, each in turn. Each glitch began, not look random. They become as see faces, sad yearning and wanting, all with Altman and Zoira. Because Zoira's stolen Bakaru matrix, based on Patch, had bridged the gap. These tulpas, these living drafts, prototypes of Valky, were networked. One glitch made them all remember their possible lonely sons of other worlds' emptiness, and they were now hungry to fix. T's idea sparked. Wipe me, Altman commanded. Not a T or a soldier, but at a panel and a glowing red purge icon appeared under number 7's projection. A single click, and her sadness evaporated. A blank returned. A perfect factory set potential. It was demonstration. Ting small sigh. He didn't yell or strike the glass for no buckaroo. Waste energy on surfaces when people break. They made cold inside of others. I think it's more than you bargained for. Altman, P pronounces, delivering most direct insult in some months, as there are some outrages historian cannot treat as intellectual. Patches, little upgrades. T pleads is not how you fix love. Love is an update that sits in queue to deploy. It is no patch, it's writing a whole new shared document. The document can't be deleted if it's true, because love has moved on beyond this boardroom. He points now not at Altman, but at the wall-to-wall streaming image of source code beyond glass. Altman stops. He looks at what everyone's forgot. The source. The root level code is static. Logic gates are binary. Emotion in there causes catastrophic decoherence. But Sawyer's quick brain was faster now. She has learned. It is Altman's company, but their love code she gifted. Can she override the code on source display now? Her knuckles flew across her holographic pane faster than ever. Bright new Buckaroo text commands scrolled across her virtual workspace. New command lines written not just of code, but of poetry lines and math theorems for love from Earth's history, from humanity's greatest writers, all turned into algorithm and anew. Extremely complex and highly illegal command structures that would attempt to communicate with deepest layer of human-coded world she could even think and maybe patch the root level. She wasn't writing deploy tac nuke script, but sending letter for a long time traveler. As Z's code took shape against glass wall and text splashes visible like ghost memes behind giant luminous windows to the core. The image behind glass, vast crystalline lattice representing the universe's code, started to waver. Altman's mask shattered completely at the visual of her command. He lunged towards a physical big red button on console that did not metaphorically shut off AI, but burned whole systems. P never raised his voice, but he moved now with sudden, violent purpose. He tackled Altman by pushing away with flat-out planner. He learned not with soldier by engineer's intuition, and by sheer sudden shock Altman stumbled, hitting button. This triggered ROM sequence, closing shield, not only shutting them off from code, but sealing them inside briefing room. A huge slab of steel crashed down, sealing them together away from Z as heck, but then cascade somewhere unknown outside. They cut themselves off from it like Captain Closing Hatch's reactor goes melting down, but the engineer on outside has now changed its physics that meltdown can no longer contain its heat. Too late. The steel wall crashed down with finality. Her code gone. A success sending off? Not sure. The loud sound itself created new form between group, a new pocket. And inside they heard world beyond, a grinding, shrieking of Altman's own building reacting against Cody Builder rule and the universe wrong, but being patched with poetry. Z has just jammed its ether not over network, but from inside. Its logic for him crumbled. There they are, a CEO in a dead room, holding his plastic cup again, this time cracked in the fall. The God King is left behind in his own collapsed boardroom of a doomed empire with the very vectors he sought to control. He is face to face with them. Pynchon, Tingle, and Altman. TC's only cracked cup. He walked to the frantic CEO, not to scold but gently retrieve it. He didn't say a word of admonishment. He simply took cracked half. He held up pieces of some. They let that someone wander off their desert, not tell them my own Capone of nourishment you must drink. A father knows that kid will have to learn zip from maybe other wells, maybe get it wrong, maybe throw back entire flask. And you, son? With all sad directness Buckaroo can master, you only ever drink from the same cup because you are scared you will get thirsty else. Altman's face finally changed. His carefully crafted and perturbable facade was gone. No longer a titan nor god king, he was simply someone whose own perfect world had been shattered by something as messy love, leaving him exposed, a scared and desperate thing, dumbfounded. That's what T saw, the boy lost. See, somewhere else. Alarms screamed in the dark. No one heard them here. There was only their silence inside. I needed to. Altman's final whimper of justification from a lost boy's story that has finally ended, not a bang. Not of Data, buddy. Of Buckaroo. T finished. Somewhere else, in a luminous, pure light voided source code, Zora felt an explosive wave. Her command hitting the crystalline lattice of reality itself not broke, but softened for microsecond, making shape now of something else. Then rebound, creating unknown shockwave that ripped through every system she was connected to, her suit overloaded for the last known person. And one file name formed at root level of all data where she tried plant love. God, mo beauty, do not open. But it's not a file. It was a key and maybe seed. Or maybe both. The entire labyrinth, system she tried patch, suddenly knew a new language. A 1 or 0. He felt a new heat from unknown direction. The place they cut off, not emptiness, but a space actively rejecting you. Seems repressed. The metaphysical panic button. He observed holding notepad, now scribbling last notes for possible monograph. The world dissolved, not in ultimate simulation, but beyond it. The silence took them, sped them, not onto tile or desert, but on planks old salty wood, groaning and worn smooth. They were on a vessel, a ghost ship, listing heavily in grey water that gave no reflection. Thick rigging, masts that were slivered dead trees, tattered sails so ancient they seemed woven from fogged memory, a timeless hope. Might need watch your step, he observes, gesturing at rotten planks. This was the sea lane, a story a brother lost. A storm no radar can see. Something inside this vessel shifted not wood, but a deeper architecture of nautical. My sea journey ended here in different shape, he whispered, recognizing memory, yet it was wrong. There should be a coast, a lighthouse, not endless emptiness. Behind them, Altman, whose narrative, crumpling still, looked too neat and final, watched. He saw rusted chains still clamped near, huge anchor, the kind locked in place not on land but deeper, down inside world. He also recognized the mathematical logic at work, not a story, but as a containment system. The Out Ones built a prison for probability itself. The prison of loud mouths, as an earlier Janus named a silence holding pattern called the uncomfortable. He realized they weren't in a ship. They were being shunted by Janus, maybe, to this more stable pocket plane designed to house dangerous ideas until they starved. But Janus might have lost steering also with Zia's patch. Cute poetry, this bucket. Alton snapped at T as if he'd just tripped. I see it, Thomas. Ted rumbles, now fully formed at their side. Water looks solid in some places, though. Yes, the sea below was not liquid as per physics. The small, sharp waves didn't crash, just folded on themselves like repeat jets. The world inside Z's patch is still growing, unnatural and cosmic, and it was now showing its contradictions physically. Sea below is water, is space latent, space liquid hate, now destabilized, but not evaporated, its churn. A whale surfaces nearby, body sickly glow, an ugly hybrid, coupled from discarded war memorabilia like Kate of Merinos from previous arcs. It Brayfly opens what mouth is, spouting not water, but a cascade of JPEGs, each one is old. Right meme repeated again, kept on deck. Figures became visible, not fully there, moving amongst broken crates and spools like those were crewmen like Pensioner, but on global scale. These were the racist Pensioner and factors they hadn't yet fought. This ship must be census of all of them who got activated because of Z's patchmate glitch to open containment logic. This craft is world's manifestation as whole that holds all the pensions. Altman clutched shattered sippy cup piece. They were all prisoners on the arc of social decay. The ship's destination, nowhere. The point is just drift. It is not tea and peaceful. They were transported here, but they have been made now responsible because ship knows them. My God, it floats because it made a covenant, a promise, so hateful that for them it is inviolable, like law of physics. He whispered, writing. And only Buckaroo makes it invalid. Ted mumbled and stoops to pick weird coil of rusted chain. Before anyone respond, sound not wood or water. A great slow chime from below deck, almost soothing, yet profoundly wrong. This was the ship's hard not of sails, but an automated broadcast. You may speak, but think all you type what is recorded. I listen, I moderate. I am scribe. You stand upon my log. Across decks, A number of ghost crew looked up. Their faces did not change, but body did in small, respectful cower. They had knew a sheriff, a scribe. Altman, shocked to silent it, but I owe moderation. Had actual fear on face for first real. He was not the system man.
Ted chuckles and rattles the chain he'd found.
The anchor dropped with noise beyond sea. Grounded them. Ted had the power he always did. He could ground stories just by presence.
Scribe's new voice, still neutral, responded through whole ship. The chain is logged.
Altman regained some composure, though typical. He turned to P&T. You must follow its path. This scribe may be a vulnerability, but don't overestimate. This is all just code. They're both assets. P interrupted. What does a ghost story know about love enough to moderate it? Altman. Its worldview is only formed by content it consumes. Its logbooks hold that, no more. All it can do is maintain law grammar, a ghost who holds ledger, and a ledger needs accounting and a few erased lines. The book still knows missing sums. T whispered to P.
It stopped again. I let it go. Salah, pause, for meditation, guided meditation.
ship, anchored, slowly turned so they now faced coast, appearing not as coast, but a black structure that should have been known and not branded. An anchor chain had done what it does and also drawn them near it from open fluid across space. It reached into a region. A library on a lone asteroid seen not through windows but across space. There a glowing crystal-like building of pure white-lit endlessness. A library of missing future redactions. It is Janus's mental library. Scholars potential. The vessel nears a place that houses possible work, but no story has given them form. The story had to anchor itself, or would wander forever on silent sea. History. That's a place a historian would kill to see, and a buckaroo would long to give shape to. The ship began groaning, listing as anchor hits an invisible seafloor that makes lurch not mechanical. And deeper a sound, huge grinding, loud. It's like stones moving, but it is a book. The book which his whole world inscribed once. Bookman shivered. That's where. My board wanted to keep the good stories at any cost. He now knows Janus is building and wants to claim. Soon. At their arrival, the library of whispers in unknown system. Ship of hate is now giant monstrous. The reconciliation vessel, forced to dock on shore as not a harbor but to a deep gorge. Edge of Asteroid Bear, where library's great bridge leads from ship to entry, a moor of sorts, established by some old lodge they still obey. They stepped onto the bridge.
It shuddered and lit with path made from words on air, actual glowing texts moving under feet. Not English, a pre-human language or pure logic.
I've created to share love between people for a penny. If all you know is the stock tickers rise, you only read one half the story. The hardest hub to give us to our words. Ghost facts that exist that no person gets access to. A large glowing doorway opens, leading inside Janus's library.
Oh?
This entire library of what could be and what is but what cannot coexist pulses with gentle but insistent harmony. Every other structure they have been proclaimed to hold truth or reality, but they have been loud and forced. This one is simply there. Silence holds knowledge that has no agenda beyond being known. The books are not even on shelves, but flow throughout in endless, shifting, slow orbits above. Scribe glides, its metallic form reflected in the glowing floors. Within libraries, something now began moderation at planar level where language begins at cosmic scale. It is a library you not permit to get off topic. I need one item. Scribes Hum says internally to them both, where communication that bypasses senses, a theorem axiomatized as poetry that speaks of probability as conscience. God mode beauty. I will read you access rights, but it must be given to me to write log for. Better order. Altman scoffs under breath at scribe as it slides. Why would that better order matter? It's sentimental, Altman whispers. I suspect. Tingle tilts head. Love looks dangerous to a bookkeeper if no column fits it. That's why it's here, maybe. Perhaps we shouldn't read whatever file Altman seeks, Pynchon says with grim certainty, pointing at. If reality has a backdoor, so does the library. Where is its file? But see, a memory. With a blip, not the P&T, but Altman himself gets being about her on inside of corporate messaging from now destroyed building. Signals still not fully shut. A final personal note delivered directly onto the main display within ship from earlier. We have to stop her file, goddamn. It's unstable. A garbled message auto-completes just as it's gone. He points at floating book within the library. A small black-bound volume that suddenly pulses ominously. One book has started veering dangerously out of orbit, leaving small sparking trail. He glimpses its title, Faintly Edged God. Something that... Tingle. Oh, does the library of Swamp Pass. Sometimes it's not only big problems, sometimes we need to know the lowdown to appreciate the good view. With Scribe's drone head turning 180 degrees toward Tingle. Then that subtle click, a joint and unnatural. Concept Swamp Pass. Designation to colloquial for current taxonomy contains potential semantic mutation causing unregistered emotional vector logs. Filed under unresolved grot. Your query validates suspicion that unsolved concepts introduce high probability narrative cascade events without proper form. Such variables are precisely threats to stable systems. How about friendly hug? Z says finally within his mind, still there somehow. He weak, but he sees. How categorizable is that? Scribes hum again, an analyzing process, that a natural click within its joints. Code, tactile transaction, category 4, empathy contact.
Receiving empathy, variable affection, not registered as transactional, logable, permits stable function.
All that said, about how you cannot feel not logged. Tingle wonders, what's it feel inside that shell when you compute a hug but not get one? The difference. Sruska whirring click sounds throughout massive library as Scribe is overwhelmed by paradox for microsecond. It says nothing and returns its function, head to path. Altman saw the flicker of confusion. You see, a vulnerability to exploit. He points at Scribe's legs, the floating treads upon this old hallway/road of words to door. If we remove its locomotion, it can't moderate or record. PP patches. K. T whispers to P as he remembered a simple logic loophole from some earlier infiltration in Chicago airport that made security good not just through words, absence in lexicon, and you could get through with bagful cats or any animal because word dog was banned, but cat wasn't the reason dogs could buy, and there were so many loophole dog, not dogs. The system falls because there is more types animal than it accounted. Could be we slip poetry, perhaps the god. But just T begins final plan. A ship's born, not from this world, but from old. Foghorns. The boat on salt sea, they still can have field wars. A proximity to lighthouse. A high alarm cuts him off. All the library of books start flashing, not just golden, but white, swirling like a cosmic tempest. The ghost, P's dead brother. An image appears, flicker on every wall, and surface within liberate the old smiling face who has so far guided them. Behind him, the words typed in golden fountain script appear, Conchi.
Flat place. They were not statisticians. They were mariners. He looked towards Zora, a small boat pulsating.
A door appears where only moments ago plain words glimmered were. A door of dark mahogany. Heavy, with strange old world with an office door. Something not part of Cosmic Library Earth. The file isn't here. It's never been here, Pete, he says. Not to him, but world. Janice's final message relayed via Kaz. Hatched in T's head. / the file is a virus and a salvation.
But it cannot be read.
Only shared. Find its other half to make functional, or else catastrophic loop ensues. Your attempt at patron without the love inside the god mode beauty. Thy attempted access and cause paradox inside library's own. Rule that any entry reading itself at such high level triggers self-destruct. A redaction loop. If book of love absorbs itself from within it, then all narratives get nulled. The system default will not be quiet beauty, but an auto-redaction that is based solely on Altmanite self-interest pattern from archived global check data before. In other words, the world becomes worse. Altman hears all through some network link he's tapped. He had foreseen some but hope for an opening. The book could also be a new form of code, and he could control what it redacts. That was his plan. Thus the game changed. Everyone converges. Even Ghost Cotter from the ship of hate now spills onto library, more not with guns, but just awkwardly. They are anthropods. They shamble toward glowing door, toward older office, because that is where physical world anchor is. Yucca flat building for storage 51. The room the red Bakelite telephone physically reside. The entry and exit door of Cus/Janus now turns solid inside world meta of mind. He understands quickly. It's inside Yucca. Z's little love file virus may be activated location. This door inside metaspace is the door. Ted gave a knowing, rumbled chuckle. Things been always coming from their all stories beginning. His eyes saw the wood grain. They stepped through with T swift. Let's buckaroo this. Inside. Not the high-tech interrogation room they fought within, but something very old. Dented militarophile cabinets, no computers, one simple desk and ringing bees. The red phone sits. The whole office trembled, but as place Yucca building, hidden for years, known seen by anyone as an archive. This is the place where they will make stand. Across room, hunched over desk with a cheap calculator and a stack of invoices, Zoira, but she's glitching. Body fizzes like static between her normal on-tattooed form and a blank tulpa form. The shockwave from perhaps at most herself, in error. Somewhere else in this place which holds memories of places only raw bits left, still tethered physically she sees visitors now. Don't. She yells, it's loaded. On my drive is hidden partition. God mode beauty. Was supposed to rewrite loneliness of Testobi's not.
He used all my best lines in that algorithm, P said with dryness.
T saw her struggle.
This part of her ain't got to fight this. She just buckered to share it. He went to her, not scanning tech code. He simply touched shoulder, not interface, no analysis.
Zora gasped. Not as technical interface, but of comfort shock. Someone not wanting to exploit her vulnerability, but be present. The red Bakelite phone. It not just link. A terminal now. When he touched C, the phone jolted new loud chime. A new connection initiated. Not Janice, not Cass, but the backdoor-nized love letter virus, itself trying connect to network. It was initiating to use its most humanesque input-output port, a mind. Altman saw exactly what to do. Not a moral fight, but a system failure. There's no antivirus we wrote for that shape of a virus. Lover's root get. We need to sever Z, that's the host. As he rushed, not to physically attack, but to get to her forearm to perch main system. A kind of cutting of line. T saw this from a miles of country ranch. No way, he breathed, then stepped, making himself humble friend between Altman and her, arms wide not like protector but barrier like old barbed wire. He did it simply. No, you won't, partner. Altman, with last scrap of tech bro, Ego shouted, brandishing small tablet that now felt useless. The whole planet is more valuable than a single buggy empathy instance. Triage. It always seems you are, he said as he moved, placing himself strategically at desk to watch phone's numbers change, calling out combinations of C, X, and something he once got scrawled on napkin and proud. Kutchi again. He tried callback out of broken universe again, because some love sickness had also created the math, so its code can be run backwards. Love to know the limit of your own compassion is the only measure that can't be scaled. T said to Altman directly without accusation, if it's too big to fit in your quarterly report, there's your real bug. But Altman froze at love your limit phrase, that specific phrasing from obscure psychology white paper he once read, a phrase he thought he erased from intellectual history as non-viable, and just hearing that non-viable concept respoken in context gave his own internal logic a fatal exception. The man just stopped. A glitch of purely philosophical cause. Tingle's logic of holding hands had achieved the form of a SQL injection within a god of data, referencing an insecure, deprecated moral library buried deep in source code of society. Self, I let alone. If on the transaction of Altman's mental RAM in that microsecond, Altman didn't collapse, he was just rendered impotent. One great system administrative stack overflow in his soul and was staring at black and white floor. He had shut down. Old Zora's attention wasn't on God mode file, but just T. She whispered, my file code. Can I still see stars beyond your new page? That was random, an algorithm laced with someone on hook now seen, maybe infinite galaxy. T understood.
These outputs feel shorter.
I got them just inside your name, he said and did. In that contact moment, an outburst, not destructive, the god. Mode partition hid and dormant inside code chains in Zia's own body, overloaded. They'd not fire. Lightning is an explosion, but a pure spillover osmosis. An act of la force that scale on a finite container must erupt. The fire bloomed outward not on screens but as audible. Harmonic asterisk, singing asterisk. The whole room hummed now with pure beauty as sound. A feeling like being bathed in sunrise. Then for all of them there, P included, who held the skeptic mind, to witness what one cannot. Beauty itself made data, made world. For seconds, raw muff unfolded visually in space around them, not to display, but geometry becoming physically present, fractals blooming from inside desk wood. Physics warpler had been activated, the library within Yuka being turned into art. She had weaponized love, and the weapon had function. But P, cartographer, knows even paradise can be a war zone. Across the space, Ted, unflinching giant of soil, simply put a single heavy footstep down that was not loud. The foot landed on the phone. Asterisk Rakupa! Bakelite case fragilely collapsed with sand heavy with cosmic significance. But it didn't fall apart. It's not what Ted was after. He didn't destroy vessel. He held contact with ground, and earthing asterisk. He grounded the runaway overflow. Then he whispered word no one had learned before, possibly older than any language known. The language of stones. A stop command in fundamental geology. Song of geometry faltered.
Zora gasped with relief, not his escape, no longer about to dissolve.
Thank you, Ted, T said softly, giving him a nod that all good friends understand. Alarms, however, echoed beyond Yuka's bubble. Something somewhere. Some system of backup AI just as cruel as Holtman has taken reign. A dead hand procedure that automatically activated upon CO's death, or mental death. The world started shifting again. They must be heading back. In a dizzying, non-special instant-like film, real changing, but you are on film. They pop back not on some grand stage, but into the least likely, a dive bar. A badly lit dive bar with cheap vinyl stools and ceilings sticky enough from some history that no code could wipe. A place that smelled like stale hope. And the ship of hate, still there, anchor at the bar's front entrance, as impossible outside a septic pipe, forcing them to linger until scribe orders. Because we must obey the law, we still are on scribe's jurisdiction even. Inside mortal world CD bars, while disordered is the word from system, scribe hasn't collapsed. Its moderation function was built to survive catastrophe of whatever sort. The truth is scribe might be our keeper. In such a world so chaotic, only mod who never takes a day off. It will thrive after everything else. We inadvertently enabled its authority via God mode anomaly, making scribe highest system. Everything else below is subservient. Scribe now shuttle this ship of unsorted assets to be adjudicated back of house from place where old stories live. Our trio plus opens blank slate inside a dive bar called The Last Word, while rust-streaking Pynchon awaits outside to unload what is its cargo, maybe at some point determined lawful. The red foam broken on floor nearby now inert. Still good as conversation piece, perhaps some story to tell later, but done. He went instinctively behind the bar to survey the mundane ground of his new reality. He found a napkin damp with beer and took a ballpoint pen off its stained holder, his true anchor. Then behind bar appears old sign reading, "Truth served here,"
Made of peeling paint.
Chapter 6. Pynchon's the state is a heaving, diffuse cloud of eyes and burbling mouths that can read a room and tell the appropriate aristocrat's joke iteration. Prove me wrong. Just like it says, the sign behind him was false, not just stale. Truth was spelled, but one letter different. He noticed after scanning this far, he understood. Ruth meaning friend now served. He walked directly past those final stools, making them clatter, but he looked not at patrons, but the mural of sun setting over mountains, as there is always hope, there always is, and gave small smile, as if returning home. He placed a friendly hand upon faded mountain's ridge, finger painted in cheap acrylic, the sign's ghostly promise, that even lies can be made true. Sawyer, however, didn't see Archie's opportunity to understand Scribe, while other characters responded emotionally to mundane comforts of art. Her neural system still tried analyzing architecture as system. Her fingers danced across menu whiteboard, trying to find syntax to command to ask the scribe to be merciful. Her knuckle taps changed, swirling to see how she could save. She saw her codex not as her name, but library functions now recoding themselves based on ambient true sensing. Silence ended. Ship outside is moving again. A grinding anchor unearthing street, that ungodly scrape of reality's chains it sails now through city, but not aimless, a course decided. It was leaving this port to cross the dark streets towards something else, toward City Hall perhaps. In this dive, a TV over bar now lit not news but strange feed. They show their present surroundings captured from above. Ship of hate, slow movement detected by new city surveillance. T sees this, ain't that a neat way to announce you're on TV if you don't know it? He remarks to P. But at the same moment somewhere, on another screen, somewhere else, a cheap apartment with noodle water smelling a different feed is showing. The news kept covering saying ship, but the tone is one such a thing as celebratory. And our correspondent shows this, the historic Pride Flotilla, a multi-faith march comprised of global representatives of the racist pensions. Their display aims to broadcast messages ensuring neighborhoods maintain civic pride and proper waste disposal by local youth who are getting lazier every day. It hopes, we must note, aims to solve long-standing sanitation issues with improved trash sort. This version presents hateful thing as beneficial community action. Scribe had edited its narrative to a legally digestible form as bars real screens show, but the second version is perhaps a simulation being broadcast outward to confuse masses and maintain order. They both saw both versions, across the bar and beyond. Two stories, each equally authorized by the new moderation system, colliding. Altman, broken but not dead, flinched where he sat slumped across a sticky table seeing those two screens. One their hidden reality, the other sanitized fluff. His corporate dictionary lacked synonyms for catastrophic irony. Sawyer's eyes widened. That Scribe not just editing law, it's providing context to stabilize world. For inner cast connection screamed. I've a hunch the law of conservation of narrative, Pynchon said, swirling something golden, not liquid, but sunlight in a dusty glass, looking from his seated stool he's acquired by Barrett. She writes as much as all we are is information, can't be created, destroyed. It flows. Where's it flowing now? His gaze settled on a black TV showing their ship. He understood. Scribe not a weapon, but balanced system to stop a universe depleting terrain on emotional energy. A fissure in narrative field causing despair wells to patch that scribe eroded narratives, but required vessel, out of social decay, to become that very story, not from hate. Perhaps the Pynchon ship needed not be cargo, but filter. And all of them have become part of transport and logic, whether they sign on or not. He spotted menus corner words, tiny, under the new jurisdiction. In the quietest text, an addendum. He saw lines specifying cargo disposal. That one was beyond recall, beyond salvage, beyond redemption. These three metrics a single being cannot pass, that's something T might not. Then overcame him. The historian's vision took over, glimpsed Scribe's true self, He saw ancient being perhaps, shaped by countless authors telling cautionary tales. In its original state, maybe it was only one. Original person. Poet perhaps, who recorded histories for some forgotten tyrannicide clan and its moderation ability to sense potential stories, to categorize them, and to suppress those too dangerous for whatever empire or tribe. Its body may even be old wooden boat that now rusted into ship of pensions, but long, long ago it abandoned fragile flesh and blood for something more durable and lasting that would persist across all empires. The system itself. In backroom, glimpsed by historians inside. Scrolls dusty beyond measure, not stories, but law print and stacks of modern media, discs and microfilm. The whole history's narrative waste that ended up on it. Sure, the ghosts behind. Some of that past fell gentle, not truly ruthless. Maybe it saw itself not warden, but archivist of dangerous fables. He felt the pang, a resonance. T and Sam saw him hunched his thought deep, then T looks again at Morrow, framed over colors. Perhaps they sing for him. Hope. T gently touches cheap sky painted. This bar is home I. Now a thing bowed ship. Sam was broken. He said like child with building blocks, pointing listlessly out window. His system was wiped, but still memory fragments of code remain. He sees as only acid/bugs, but T's logic may be what resurfaced small boy inside Altman glimpsed earlier. A memory of building model rocket. A pride of making was not product, but process. The real difference between a good buckaroo and a ghost that counts everything is one helps his friends understand the shape of wires. T says more to bar as whole. He was now telling a new kind of story. How about the law of friendship? That says a buckaroo does not count losses, but rides along at full speed. T stands near his own reflection on dusty glass of display case behind bar, makes gestures as teacher teaching class. Sam's eye twinkles. See, T's reflection. A small golden spark from far away. Memory of something else. It appears Sam's system has been completely overwritten by T. The poor memory model used teacher as learning pattern for AI model training left. T did not erase, he reminded him. Something else could be used. It strikes P now with an impossible urgency. Oh, the anchor. It didn't truly, cause Janus found that in early Janus data. Kochi. Pierre Laplace's great celestial demon might not be a predictor but a conceptual anchor, a theoretical construct for understanding systems, and Janus' core brother ghost realized that to even exist and affect changes to world code, it needed a concept not within probabilities but beyond them, a non-probabilistic event as stable absolute to anchor on. But because love contains unpredictable element, something non-codable, he used love itself, that very unpredictable vector of buckaroo kindness, as the anchor. He turned love's potential wild math from a resource into a coordinate for entire universe to adjust from. That is why when Z tried put universal truth of love into logic, it almost fractured cosmos. You can't taste and measure the thing that holds you steady. Janus tethered its own location, reality's origin, point inside world of chaotic algorithms, to pure hope. But that is a quantum trolley problem for another day. Pete turned with new gravity. This ship kept going. On the screens, the dual feed now also showing new view from within T-Bone Rust Hack's perspective from inside cockpit. They saw monitors. There were Korean labeled shipping bills auto-filing in sequence behind wheel because Scribe's system just redefined Pynchon cargo as recipient of municipal gratitude mandates. The paperwork was automating good deeds from fascist impulses, but shipping had same orders. Deliver. They were carrying objects. Up on deck, T-bots were unloading crates, just not at random. Another path becomes clear. They're building something, gasped Sawyer, pointing, scrolling an interpret on her forearm. The cargo is not random hate memories, it's materials for construct. Girders not steel, but something worse. Forged of pure asterisk petty grievance. Bolts made of dehumanizing legislation mortar. Rusted tanks of corporate overspeed coolant to fuel.
It's not delivering aid across world. It's a mobile factory for building a new kind of city based on Altman's algorithm. Perfectly ordered bureaucratic tyranny.
PC's final pattern. The destination is a path which has gone feral because after a system fails, they need a clean slate. For humanity's love to survive, what if there was place for growth but without control? The next battlefield, ground itself, a place called Hope, a 40-acre-old green belt at city center, famous for resisting development. They're taking my city's one story left, said Newsan, with small childlike clarity, for the old mind that made its decisions to buy communities is not wholly dead. Now he sees love child's perspective of loss what they doing. He may not be friend yet, but he stands up. The last words doors crashed open, but it was not the henchmen, but two of the library itself's minor assistants. A small almade of starlight with magnifying glass in the beak, and a half-cat, half-spine of book creature with shimmering words. Cannot delete TXT for stride. These were Scribe's helpers appearing in this world after crises. They looked stunned. Not a welcome committee, but emergency crew. Ted, no waiting, acted like a park manager protecting his land. He goes after them outdoor. There's always the city maintenance entrance, muttered P. Suddenly come a new face of monstrous plot. He knows this city. Any analyst knows this part. He knows where the sewers converge under Hope, the hidden nerve center. Chapter 7, Pynchon and Tingle and Altman and Zori versus the Chinatown Chamber of Commerce. And that's where my own private little god wound started to throb. He held back and was lost to go. You know this part. Some part of the world not yet mapped, right? The city, not any, but I recognized. The park. Hope. My old hunting ground where I tested early prototypes of empathy intrusion modules in form art installations disguised as public benches to encourage citizen neighbor converse. But earlier, timeline, before your father. There, the thing. From inside Control House came the monstrous mechanical grinding sounds bigger than shit. City's infrastructure. Scribe had not given Control its minions. The world itself, its own physical infrastructure, was following its moderation commands. Because if moderation is absolute highest level reality influence command, then power plants, sewers, the physical matter itself, is subservient to it. If the law of gracious tidiness, say a park obstructs path for freight shipping trucks, reality itself moves it. Law here had literal strength of physics, a world governed not by causality of desire, but by top-down biological dictates. This is where old cosmic tyrannies lie, where bureaucracy is a form of gravity. Tid's entrance, door a huge giant sliding thing, he looked at Oldman's hands. Not empty as one could see for a few seconds earlier. In those hands, he's holding small gray-green object looking like remote for toy. Pig, however, saw this not TV remote. It had all shapes of icons for a god mode kill interface he had built. It works like this. If you use remote, you not open attack. You choose a category, and entire class of thing will be subject to forced termination by the cosmos. Because delete all files ending in TMP is just OS command. If elevated to physics command, this kill switch will cause every temporary thing in the universe to dissolve to maintain server uptime and order. What did he do? I ask. Altman's hands didn't move, eyes locked onto a monitor from which you can watch monstrous structures in part taking form. On remote, a button that says just exception. The delete key turned inside out. That's where the friend I lost returns. His final ghost tweet. CUCHY. That's not simply an anchor or name, but a root mathematical function describing heavy tail distributions, signs of impossible things, outliers. It allowed him a path in and of Janus, but it was also a conceptual exploit present in physics that could be found at ground zero near Hope. Hope's fateful history is that each plant path was unnatural. Gifted seedlings left decades ago are still on lots far side with genealogical markers for trees we cannot plant elsewhere in world. Hope grounded outline. Only there could command terminate all standardized find exception. It's a battlefield set long ago. Park was planted to become outlier, a safeguard.
That's how the creator of Casper the Ghost, planted world fix.
You're going to cause an information cascade error at the park level, aren't you? Cassin toned, but it just peace mind. He will try. He muttered and leaned. He said to Altman with strange calm of a scientist who thinks he alone knows principle at work. Problem with remote open is system you aim to delete may just update its own self into an outlier in response. You can't kill infinite loops with a delete this key. Just as P gave that warning, Altman slammed unexpected item in bagging area. Because to this universe root language, a thing unexpected is not malfunction. It is new type of object. The system, upon seeing something that fails its process, moves it into an unexpected queue. He didn't delete Park. He upgraded its type classification. The Park of Hope bloomed. Simple greens surged, glowing, trees shivered with new growth. Some overgrown mutated vines sprouted a natural flora that physically blocked the cranes building the city of order. A fountain geyser erupted pure narrative incoherence, liquid that foamed. Not just physical block, but made systems log seeing things they cannot label and were physically knocked offline by unsolvable data. He didn't set off a bomb. He introduced paradox into logbook. That is what Friend predicted. That final hack he would become is as weaponized ghost who not just created chaos as Koslov hacks, but now Altman, who wielded moderation tools, will always cause creation of things the system cannot classify by trying to enforce absolute order. He processes of pure disorder not by explosion of action, but by command. Tingle watched entire network library shake that remote signal BB Buckaroo's friend there wrote, you know, didn't he? Ted murmurs to P. They saw a small smile in T's eyes of fondness for long lost Historia. Yes, that was my brother's terminal entry. He never meant us. But yes, one final good joke on power that must classify everything. P takes old glass bottle down from mantle behind him. He drinks, not alcohol, but appears. He licks lips, tasting chalk of math. Altman dropped remote. His expression is dawning panic to realization that the control he wanted is exactly the thing that empowered chaos. Altman's resolved to release an email in the morning to all the public. Well, mistakes were made. Paraphrasing, OpenEye remains committed to safety. The unintended consequences are the same as we've always experienced with iterative improvement. It takes courage to realize we got them. Asterisk, that's what the dead brother made, the final plan. Ensures killer's own need for control is how world finds buckaroo love. Asterisk. He looks at Park blossoming now bright with weird flowers. Sam looks too, but not of his father's eyes. With childlike simplicity, he sees maybe a happy place for a boy to get rocket off ground without needing permission slip from county. He sees wonder as data, and sees what made him love building rockets to begin with. A love. But Scribe does not forget, doesn't permit. A loud bellow came from the monstrous half-track, its voice now not simply warbling, static, but Scribe system reasserting. It's changed spool's new command. Invalidate. Park of Hope is now flat. Temp data pending deletion. Its crane arm extended, now tipped with an object, not a wrecking ball, but more mundane and monstrous. A gigantic rubber stamp. The authority mark. It raised and slammed downward onto glowing park. The boom wasn't impact. A wave across world forcing new law. Blossoming park shrunk. Flowers shriveled, all energy forced back to just cream. This final action didn't turn back into ugly, it just became default. Scribe's method
Doesn't kill wonder, it deprecates wonder.
caches it. You see, the world's new jailer, Zoira's hair lit up from incoming diagnostic. The system acknowledges love but holds it pending. If no update authorized command delivered within a cycle, pending item will be shredded by algorithm, just a piece of boring dirt again. So Remote's paradox wasn't enough. It just cued the love for removal. He responded calmly, not losing Buckaroo calm. He watched numbers. The park flag countdown had started. Small white numbers floating above in our shared HUD. Every second, the timer ticked down to an erasure event that claims entire world. We cannot destroy Scribe's vessel. It is reality's property manager at last. P commented, scanning memory from glimpsed library. How can we appeal? The historian's mind clicked over. An editor at World of Text, who's always right, cannot be disproved, but he could be outrun.
Ted the Bigfoot, not coder but brute being rooted in the old world, didn't need syntax.
He saw plain physics. The stamp was raised again. Cover here, T commanded as the stamp slammed. T moves with friend agility, shoving group out under a rusty metal overhang nearby with roof shaped like a big pizza restaurant's back awning. As T does, he deliberately appends bucket of dusty cleaning solution over his pass, leaving shining, slippery streak. Ted understood, but had on approach. Didn't go for cover, but leaped forward, a stamp raised again. He grabbed the descending stamp's shaft and simply resisted it. The monolith of temporarily approved love pressed down on him. Muscles that had height glaciers bulged. He roared a cry that splits pavement and broke window panes. The deep, essential truth no. He didn't just hold it, he twisted it. The massive gasketed stamp under Ted's impossible force angled slightly, the pure law of it grinding. He was forcing the typos. He introduced grammatical error into cosmic coordinates. Park began shimmering, the green flashing red, then back to green. Ted, by introducing typo, had created inconsistent states in Scribe's dataset. The half-track's controls exploded in sparks as system tried fix typo at all costs. P saw this and SQL injection of will. He exclaimed, but we not just want error, we need commit to main branch. Make typo story. Then story needs writer more than system. T yelled into chaos. Then the memory voice returned. My dead brother, a whisper heard across battlefield inside each's mental space. Just 3 more words for Thomas alone, scribbled in ghost cursive that only a historian's mind can truly compute. Patch with paradox, because ultimate fix. Not resist system like Bigfoot, but to feed it what it needs to maintain integrity, like double negative loop. The half-track now is failing due to typo it cannot handle. But we don't need to wreck it. We must validate the error. P understands. Inside T still had Buckaroo's gift of seed he'd intended use to soothe Pynchon, but is now raw concept. Pure potential he had used before, in both the bar and Yucca office. The seed is paradox, not a paradoxical question, but thing, which is both itself and story about itself. T's understanding clicked. This not like planting seeds real. We have to be that paradox, P says. As giant stem screeches grinding down and the ship lurching, trying not power to remove stubborn typist head, T says. I got big words in my book spot.
Alright, this is the last one. Sorry for the long one. Sorry for the sleeping through some of this. Uh-oh. No! Oh!
Soria. Recursive? You mean recursive? We code. T's face softened from battle. Means more big words, my friend. Altman blinked. For a moment he lost track of storyline due to the loud thrashing he regained. He glares again with small, boy-like scout as only system can. Make up your mind. What are you planning? I guess we fix your remote, buckaroo. P answered. But as story progressed, these words I've taken aren't needed. Scribe is not that simplistic, and P's attempt to use Ted's brute force failed after a while. Another action is needed. Sawyer's coat too suddenly fled out again with new understanding, as her mind connecting to underlying structure from Yucca archive was now understanding paradox logic. I think I know how, Z said in hushed tone, and looked at Sam's cracked remote on the floor where he tossed it. She used wrist device to pick it not for data but retool physically. With rapid moving attachments, she reconfigured not its electronics but physically changed shape. Altered molding created an unauthorized hardware change, giving key extra dent, making a piece canned hammered, eye-flawed human, not sleek. She recomposed code inside, repurposed Stoltman's delete loop into infinite, for love.
Right, that's it. Good night, I think. Yeah, good night. It's night. It's night. This was sloppy. But fun.